You're watching Hot Walk Academy. My name is Ming Jin Tong. I want to help you master your kitchen. Today we're making a soup that we love to have at our house, and let's call it hot pot soup. Let's cook. Okay, basic rundown of our ingredients. I've got some chicken broth on the stove. It's warming up. And here in my pot, I've just got some water boiling. We'll talk about that in a second. So for the ingredients, we're gonna have pork rib. This pork rib is, you can usually buy it cooked and ready to go because it's a very common ingredient, especially in Chinese cooking. So you'll wanna find the kind that are the short rib, cut nice and small, just like this. It's just right out of the fridge, not salted, nothing like that. I've got, of course, shiitake mushrooms, and look at the size of this thing. Look at the size of this mushroom, it's huge. So a couple shiitake mushrooms that we'll cut up and use. I've got some daikon. This is the Chinese daikon, not the Korean with the green top. I've got two of them because they're small, but you'll want one that's about this big. Normally they're a little bit bigger. We've got this amazing product here. If you've not used this product before, I highly recommend that you get it, try it out. This is tofu skin, which is the layer of protein that coagulates on the top of soy milk. What they do is they draw that off, let it dry, and then they actually deep fry it. And you'll see it's kind of coiled up because it is a product that is usually a sheet. They deep fry it just like this, and then it's ready to put into your soup. Really, really tasty product. If you've not used it before, check it out. Deep fried tofu skin is what you'll find it called at the grocery store. And then I've got here, of course, just salt. This is rice wine that we will be adding. And then the very last thing here is a product that I've only actually just recently started using, but my kids really love it. I think it's got a great flavor. This is tofu made with eggs. And so it's kind of a mishmash. Half tofu, half egg, blended together, and it goes really great in soups. Try this product out, you'll really, really enjoy it. Okay, so basic steps, we are going to start with the pork. So I've got my heat all the way up, I got my water boiling. I am gonna add some salt. So this salt is to flavor the pork only a little bit, and also to get that water really at a higher temp here. So a little bit of salt in there. And what I want to do is you want to remove what the Chinese call xing wei, or some of that gamey flavor away from the pork. So let's take all the pork and we're just gonna add it into the water. And the point here is not to cook the pork. The point here is to blanch it. But in addition to blanching, what we're doing is we're gonna be drawing out a lot of that gamey flavor that's kind of left over from the pig itself. In addition to that, because each rib bone has been cut, what's gonna happen is the marrow will kind of leak out onto the side, and it'll draw some kind of unpleasant colors, some textures to the soup. We want all of that to be removed. The way we do that is by blanching the pork. Let me just wash my hands. Okay, once you have your pork in that water, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and bring that back to a boil. So we're just going to let that do its magic for just a moment. And while that's bringing back to a boil, let's go ahead and start some of our prep. So our tofu, pretty much ready to go. We'll show you what to do with that in a minute. I'll just set that off to the side. Why don't we go ahead and start with our shiitake. So shiitake mushrooms, these are fresh ones, not the dried ones. If you want to use dried shiitake, that's also fine. Make sure you let it soak for quite a long time to be able to reconstitute it all the way. And then, if you're using fresh, what you want to do, in order to get the stem off the shiitake mushroom, this is a really, really hard, woody stem, and it's quite actually unpleasant to eat. So to take it off, all you want to do is hold the cap in one hand and just kind of peel it with the other hand all the way around. And as you bend it off, look at that, it just comes right out. very, very simply. No knife needed, just kind of bend it out. So let's go ahead and take all the caps off. We'll compost those caps. Again, just bend that stem right out of the shiitake, just like that. And you could put as many shiitake mushrooms as you want. If you like other kinds of mushroom, feel free to add that. Shiitake are very, very fragrant. And because this soup, as you'll notice, I don't have any other spices in here. So we're actually using the shiitake to add and lend flavor to the soup itself. So it's a great choice. But again, you can always make any variation you want, adding in different spices, etc. So let's get all these out. Again, no knife needed, just bend it and let it come out on its own. And everything is going to be cooking for a little bit, kind of we're gonna let it simmer for at least about an hour. So because of that, when we start thinking about the size consideration for how big to cut everything, we wanna keep in mind that because the pork takes a little bit time to break down and get tender, you do want to cut your food a little bit bigger. So a general principle would be this: the longer something cooks, like a roast, the bigger it should be. And the faster it cooks, the smaller or thinner it should be. And because we know this is going to be in for a little while, we're going to make our cuts a little bit large. So for our mushroom, perhaps, now these are huge, huge caps. So I might actually cut these into 6 because they're so big. But essentially, I want a big chunky mushroom because it's gonna last longer, endure longer in that soup. In the meantime, let's have a look at our pork because the water has started boiling. So if we see here, if you look down in the pot, what you'll see is some of these white bubbles have started to form around the edge. Eventually, even more of that stuff, the marrow and the bone and the blood, is going to be cooking out of the bone, and that's good. That's what we want. So we're going to let that be removed from the bone. We're going to draw that off. Here I've got just a kind of a slotted or a filtering kind of a spoon. And what we can do is just draw out all of that from your soup and just remove that from your soup, okay? So let's let that go a little bit longer and we'll finish up these mushrooms here. Just do a real quick chop on these. Again, because these are so big, I'm doing 1/6 of a cut for each one, or cutting each cap into 6 pieces. I've chosen to do it kind of right down in the center, so like little pizza slices almost. You can cut it however you want. In fact, if you do want to cut it like almost like a tic-tac-toe board, you could go like that. Kind of up to you, whatever shape you want in your soup. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is the uniformity of size across all of the ingredients. So let's get these ones done here. Look at how big this cap is. That is huge. You know what? I think this could be like a character in a show. We'll see. All right, let's finish that up here. Huge, huge shiitake mushrooms. And keeping an eye on my pork. There's a lot of that foam coming up, which is great. Again, the whole idea of boiling the ribs before you put them in your soup is to remove the impurities from it. All right, let's get all of our mushrooms ready to go. This is a super quick soup that you can make, and there's a lot of protein, a lot of flavor in it. All right, let's have a look. So this is good. I've got my heat all the way up. I've got quite a bit of this white foam all around. I'm just going to be scraping that off and removing it. And really, you don't have to go crazy on this step. Just let it go for a couple minutes, again, to clean and purify that pork. Now, the last part is we're going to add some rice wine. Now, this is about a cup of rice wine, and the rice wine will go in and further remove the gaminess. Because of the alcohol in here, it will further remove the gaminess of the pork. Let's go ahead and add that in and give that a quick stir. You'll see how cloudy this water is. And again, all of that is kind of the impurities from the pork that we want gone. Once that comes back to a boil, I'm gonna clean it again, and then I'll show you what to do. In the meantime, let's go ahead and prepare our daikon. So what we'll do here is let's go ahead and remove all of the skin from it. Sometimes daikon skin can be really thick, and what you wanna do is you'll wanna go a little bit deeper into the daikon so that each piece of the daikon, when you eat it, does not have kind of a fibrous part. So you can kind of tell here, I don't know if we can get in real close here. This part of the daikon looks more translucent, whereas this part looks a little bit more white. You want to remove the white part, even though the skin is already off the daikon. I'm talking about a layer below the skin before the flesh. You want to actually remove that, get that white layer off to reveal that light translucent part. That light translucent part is the sweet part of the daikon. The other parts, if you cook them, they're gonna really be tough, even in the soup. So let's go ahead and peel this one, same thing. I wanna get all the way down through the white part of the daikon to that nice translucent flesh. And yes, you are losing a little bit of product when you do that, but frankly, if you leave it on, people are gonna be struggling with it. They're gonna be spitting it out when they eat the soup anyway. So we want all of that white part of the daikon gone. All right, let's leave that alone, and let's take a look at our pork. It's going really good. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat all the way off, and let's draw out the rest of that foam. Again, that kind of the impurities from the pork. All right, so that is ready. There is still remaining a little bit of that alcohol flavor. What I want to do now is I want to go ahead and scoop. So I've got here, this is a straining stainless steel basket and just a food prep bowl to catch it all. And I'm going to go ahead and remove all the pork. And I'm actually going to put it into here because I am going to rinse it. I want to remove as much of that impurity from the pork as I can. Now, you might wonder, can I skip this step? It's really up to you. This step of purifying the pork yields a cleaner soup with a more clear broth at the end, and it removes any off flavors that the raw pork might be giving to your soup. However, if you don't want to do this step, you don't have to. It's really kind of up to you how you want your soup to turn out. Okay, so once that is totally out, I'm just gonna give my pork a rinse right with just the cold tap water. So there's nothing, I'm not really removing anything that's inside. I'm just kind of rinsing off anything that was left on the broth. I wanna get that out. Okay, your pork is ready. And some people might call this par cooked or part way cooked. So you could refer to this as your par cooked pork ready to go in your soup for later. So we'll just set that off to the side and we're ready to go. Let me go ahead and switch my pot out and I'll get my soup pot here. All right, so I've got here another pot. This is just chicken broth. Let me go ahead and get that back on high. And what I can do is I can go ahead and introduce my pork, again, which is par cooked, ready to use, clean, no more of those off flavors, and I'll put it right into the soup. Let's go ahead and turn that a little bit down. And that's gonna begin now to simmer. Now, hopefully what we'll see, and you'll see it in a minute, will there be more of those impure bubbles or foam coming up? A little bit, but it's greatly reduced because we have removed most of it from our soup. And we can also get our mushrooms in. The mushrooms, the daikon, and the pork, they will all cook for about an hour. The mushrooms, of course, you can actually eat raw, but we're cooking them because we want them to be nice and tender, and we want the flavors to be imparted into our soup. So let's go ahead and add the mushrooms in. And the last will be our daikon. Let's go ahead and get our daikon cut. Oh, watch out, it's very slippery apparently. All right, let's go ahead and cut off the end and cut off the end there as well. Same here. All right, that is ready to go. And what I'll do, again, I want to match the size of my daikon to the size of my mushroom. So I'm gonna do one slice here, and I think what I'll do is go ahead and do another slice this way. And now I can simply come through and do big chunks. Okay, and we will add that right to the soup. Same thing here. All right, once your daikon, mushrooms, and pork are in, now you'll notice I have not added any salt to anything except for the water I used to purify the pork. So at this point, I can add a little bit of salt, and this will just be for actually flavoring the soup. So I'll go ahead and add just a couple scoops here. Let me get this all incorporated. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and just let this go ahead and boil. Let me get my cap. So we'll put a lid on this. Actually, what we're gonna do, because I introduced so much cold product into the soup, I've got my fire all the way high now, and I want to bring that all the way back up to a boil. And then once it's at a boil, I want to turn it down to a simmer, put the cap on, and let that simmer for about an hour. In the meantime, let me show you how we will prep our tofu. So for our tofu, it comes, and it was actually like coagulated inside of this tube. As you can see, it fills all the way to the end. So let's go ahead and cut that little end off. And we'll go ahead and just actually cut it right down the center as well. Make sure you got a nice sharp knife. And let's go ahead and get this out here. Super cute product. Super tasty product, actually. And for the tofu, you can cut this tofu into any shape that you want. So for me, I actually want some nice big chunks. I'm just gonna put my knife right down and do some big circles to kind of match the theme of the rest of the soup. Big chunks of pork, big chunks of mushroom, and big chunks of daikon and tofu. Now, this tofu is very, very delicate. You do not wanna put it in your soup. You do not wanna boil it for an hour. If you do, it probably would hold its shape, but it's actually, it might fall apart. So look at how delicate this is. Really, really soft. You could just break it right in half with your hand, just like that. So when you prepare this tofu, set it off to the side, be very gentle with it, and we're not gonna put it into the soup until the soup is completely done, ready to serve. This tofu really does not even need to cook. We're essentially gonna add it to the soup at the very, very end and enjoy it that way. Okay, my water is back up to a boil now. And so what I'm gonna do is, let's just kind of make sure everything is nicely in the liquid. This is, again, chicken broth. And because it looks good there, I'm gonna turn this to a simmer. Put that on. We're gonna let that go for 1 hour and we'll be back. Okay, let's finish up our soup. The soup has been now boiling for about an hour. I just had it simmer covered the whole time, and I did open it one time just to mix it up. Now let's go ahead and lift the lid and see what we're looking at here. So first observation, on the inside of my lid, I do have a little bit, if you can see some of these black dots here, that is the blood and some of the impurities that were not yet removed from the pork, but there's not a lot of it, and that's a good thing. So second, let's observe here, our soup is pretty clear. So let's go ahead and look at it here. Very, very clear soup. You don't have a lot of that foam. There's not a lot of that blood or impurities here. That's what we're looking for. The third thing is, look at the daikon. The daikon is now clear. It's translucent all the way through. That's when you know your daikon is cooked all the way through. Same thing for the mushroom. If you observe the mushroom, it's a pretty uniform color. From the bottom all the way to the top, you can see a little bit of whiteness there in the very top of the mushroom, but this mushroom is gonna be cooked all the way through. It's super fragrant right now. I wish you could smell it. The last thing to know is that the pork is also cooked all the way through. Super tender. It's a little bit hot for me to touch, so I'm not gonna touch it, but it is not just cooked like it's done. Of course, that was a long time ago. But now with the heat over time has melted the collagen that's inside of the protein that holds the meat together. And because it's melted, our ribs are gonna be fall off the bone ribs. That's what you're looking for. Let's go ahead and finish this soup off. The first thing we wanna do is put in our bean curd skin. Now these, again, are already cooked, so you just kind of wanna break them open. The reason I'm breaking them is because I don't want them to be too big as I eat them, right? Kind of like the size of that you would put in your mouth for one bite is kind of the size that we want. And again, I'm not gonna add all of this. At home you can. This is one entire pack. By the way, for this tofu skin, you wanna find this in the refrigerated section of the grocery. So let's go ahead and push this in. You're gonna see that these things, although they're quite crispy, they will eventually, as they hit the moisture, they become soggy and soft. They take on the flavors of the soup, and they are very, very nice. They kind of turn out almost like a noodle texture. So let's get that in, kind of bury that in our soup. And you don't need, in fact, I would say, don't boil the tofu skin for the entire hour because it's gonna be too long. They're gonna disintegrate. You really just need to get them in the soup to let them soften up. And like I said at the very beginning here, this is our egg tofu. You also wanna add that at the end, just to let that kind of get warm inside your soup. So that is basically all done. Let me mix it around a little bit to better incorporate it and get some of this hot soup and just put it over my tofu, let my tofu warm up. Okay, and we are basically ready to dish. So let's go ahead. I'll keep this to the side here, but let's get some of this on the bottom. We've got some daikon, some pork rib, some mushroom. Let's find some more of my ribs down here. There's another piece of rib. And then let's get some of the tofu skin. And of course, finish that off with the egg tofu. Okay, now this dish, as you can tell, we did not overly season it. Because this is a hot pot style dish, normally we just have broth and it's a very light flavor. We build the flavors with the ingredients like shiitake, and you can always eat this dish with additional dipping sauces on the side. I hope you try it. Let us know what you think. I would love to hear how it turns out for you. Please like, share, subscribe, follow. Thanks so much.